What up, YouTube? It's Frisky Dingo here, getting back with you guys with another review slash reaction video. Today we're looking at the World Boxing Association, aka the WBA, announcing that they're basically removing all of their interim belts within all of the boxing weight divisions that exist, and that now it will only be one world champion belt for each division, but also they're going to keep their gold WBA belt, but that belt won't mean much, and it will just be accreditation within the normality of their rankings. So basically putting it, I think the WBA, the president Mendoza, he actually spoke about this. He had an open and public statement saying that he wanted to show the responsibility of what's been going on in the boxing scene, and basically coming to admittance that what's currently going on with these belts and the way it's being used for the politic of boxing is hurting the fighters, and not only the fighters but the organizations. And I think these last 5 to 6 years have pretty much been a tumultuous 5 to 6 years within the boxing pro scene because of what's been going on with these different belts. Basically champions not wanting to fight each other, champions being called 5 division or 4 division champions by having a regular belt that basically means nothing. Just different antics, old champions holding on to belts so that they can hold on to money and make sure that no other young champion moves in. There's different type of scenarios that have been going on for the last 5 to 6 years within the boxing scene. Even more notably, I think one of the bigger ones was with the whole Thurman Pacquiao situation. That was one of a notoriety that a lot of people were upset about. So honestly, I can say that this is a good stepping stone for the boxing community. Good that we see someone taking accountability of what's been going on, in the way that basically the fights haven't been the same, and setting up fights have not been the same. And I think that a lot of fans are getting to the point where we're just getting upset that the best fights aren't being made, and that's what we end up seeing at this point in this year of 2021 of boxing. And I think it's pretty cool, just to see him speak about it. Who knows what the company is going through? Maybe they're going through, practice defaults. Maybe they're going through a lawsuit. But realistically, it just makes sense. When you put all these belts out here and you give them all these different names, it doesn't hold credibility for other fighters when they're going up in weight. And I think that's one of the things that I'm happy about, that's going to be removed. So that basically means that at this point, anybody that has an interim belt will have to see if they're still being credited as a division champion. But with this belt being removed, that basically would mean it's being removed from all records of boxing. So basically whoever owned a WBA junior belt is pretty much going to be stripped of the recognition of being a division champion. And I think it is actually real funny, because Rolly Romero had spoke recently on his social media that how he's depressed, how can they do this to him, and I think this is really what had happened. I think he got wind of what was going on with the WBA, and he basically now at this point was stripped of a belt, and that being said, losing credibility that he has as a boxer. And I think when he posted that, that's what he was talking about. So that could pretty much mean he might be forced to fight Devin Haney at this point. We will see. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this news. Hopefully we can see what happens within the next couple months of things being shaken up, now that people actually have to fight to get the actual championship. And hopefully the WBC comes out and announces, Suleiman says, I'm sorry about the WBC franchise trophy, we're just gonna get rid of it. Because honestly, that's another thing that's holding the WBC back with credibility. That prestigious green belt has meant a lot for a lot of different boxers. From Muhammad Ali to Floyd to Duran to Sugar Ray Leonard, all of the best boxers, recognize that belt as to be one of the best. So that being said, they need to reestablish their credibility in boxing currently. This franchise trophy is no different than the regular belt. It's holding down other fighters who can get a chance at glory. You know, being what does that mean? Like, really think about it, right? There's only been 3 franchise champions: Canelo, Lomachenko, and Teofimo Lopez. Each one of them, ironically, can be said to have used that trophy as a way to duck a fighter in their division so that they can continue to be a champion. And it's kind of funny that, you know, Canelo was offered the franchise trophy when he automatically found out that Charlo became his mandatory, and then they just automatically elevated him to franchise champion. It's funny that, you know, when Devin Haney activated his mandatory against Lomachenko, they gave him the franchise championship, and then Teofimo Lopez, he didn't really do anything. He just beat Lomachenko, and they still gave him the trophy, which kind of ruins the credibility. Like, you're basically saying, like, right before the fight, you emailed WBC and asked them, hey, can we get this franchise championship used, like, for this fight? And all of these type of things. I think it's extremely weird, you know, when he called Devin an email champion. It's ironic because he is an email champion, and he used that franchise title to kind of, you know, block Devin Haney from getting a fight. And unfortunately, that's the normality of boxing. We're going to keep on seeing that for years to come. You know, Floyd famously had to go through that problem. Hence, you know, we always have to give Floyd Mayweather credibility for his career, because the people behind him knew what he needed to do to become successful. And when he was going through his 130 championship run, he defended that title 10 times, a complete 10 times, before he moved up to 135 to fight. So I think that's one of the greater things about Floyd. He knew kind of how to outmaneuver people trying to avoid him, and the people that did avoid him, you know, who are they now in boxing? So realistically, I think it's pretty cool that we've gotten these fights, and I hope that, you know, with the WBA's decision, other organizations can look at that and move forward and basically, you know, say, hey, listen, we don't want all of these different championships, you know, representing our corporation, because at the end of the day, we're not fulfilling the need of the fights, and that's what matters. If you have a bunch of titles and no one's fighting each other, then what is that? That doesn't make any sense. And I mean, the WBA has been in some issues. I mean, the biggest one also has been, I think the one that hurt them the most was the Jaime Mungia versus Andre. That fight was supposed to been happen. Mungia is a regular champion, and he never took the fight. He basically used the belt as some to keep notoriety. And I think that's a perfect example of what fighters are doing today. They're taking that one belt and using it to bring their status up when it absolutely means nothing. You know, no offense to, you know, other fighters, but to get an actual world title means something. We cannot destroy the credibility of a world title, because the world title has existed since the beginning of boxing. Muhammad Ali had one. Everybody had a world title, and basically at this point we need those multiple titles so that we could get better fights. That's the reason why the Alphabet organization exists. They don't exist because someone wanted to be corrupt. No, the corruption was already happening. The best fights were not happening during the old school era. A lot of people have a lot of misinformation, but the worst fights were happening in the old school era. And on top of that, other fighters were ducked. Like, there's the whole black murderers row of the old school era. So we don't need to go into that information to know that people use a world title to duck someone else so they don't have to fight them. And I think that's basically what's happened in boxing now. You know, Canelo beating Rocky Fielding and being called a 4-division champion with a regular belt, that's nonsense. You know, Tank Davis, you know, moving up in weight and winning a regular belt and being called a 3-division champion, that's nonsense. Anybody that holds that belt and is taking away credibility from someone who's actually moving up and getting a world title. So I'm happy that this era is gonna come to an end. And hopefully we can find out more information. You know, Floyd, he spoke about this. It's crazy that things like this are happening now, but obviously it's not because of Floyd. It's the obvious backlash on the internet. So hopefully we'll get to hear more information, maybe from the WBC. the World Boxing Council, maybe the IBF, the International Boxing Federation. Maybe they'll let us know something, but we won't find out until the near future. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.